Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Medfield Public Schools School Committee meeting for Monday, May 15th, 2017. We were in executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations with AFL-CIO, Council Number 9, Local 3901, Custodian, the Maintenance Group, Cafeteria Group, and the Secretarial Group. On the agenda tonight, we have public input. We have the approval of minutes from March 13th, April 3rd, and April 24th. For new business, we have the Elementary World Language Study Group presentation, the school committee meeting dates for 2017-2018, and the school lunch prices for 2017-2018. Old business, we have fiscal year 18 budget discussions and donations. We'll have the superintendent's report to the committee, which will include the Medfield 2021 status, student services update, research and development for the summer of 2017, and district recognition. Future agenda items will include the Medfield 2021 status, fiscal year 17 budget closeout, student activity and policy update, and the athletic fee discussion. Does anyone have any public input to start? Sure.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris McHugh-Potts, and I just wanted to address a couple things that happened at the last couple school committee meetings. And I just wanted to reiterate that, our governor has signed a bill last year that strengthened Massachusetts' much-aligned public records laws, which were considered one of the weakest in the country. The law went into effect on January 1st of this year. Every government record in Massachusetts is presumed to be public, unless it will be withheld under specifically stated exemption, and a citizen has a legal right to gain timely access to those government records. But beyond the law, a citizen's effort to gain factual information should be encouraged, not met with scorn and an attempt at intimidation, as was perceived not just by me, but also representative of the Secretary of State's office, as well as a transparency advocate in a local public policy institute. I just want to make it clear, I am not intimidated by anyone's sharing of my public information request with this committee or with anyone else, including broadcasting my name. In fact, I would wholeheartedly encourage any citizen looking for school information to exercise their legal rights and request it, either from the district or from the state, depending on the nature of the information. It could be anything related to the number of bullying incidents reported in a given year, the number of rejected IEPs, amount of money paid in litigation costs, school lease agreements or contracts, collective bargaining agreements and statistics on teacher turnover, detailed budget information, including salary information. No one can effectively advocate for our schools, our students, or our teachers without this kind of factual information. I should point out that my public record request for compensation for 2 Medfield administrators who followed Dr. Marsden to Medfield was a result of the school committee not being transparent with budget information, and especially compensation, which according to district policy GCBA is to be reviewed annually and voted on by the school committee prior to July 1st. That's with regard to principal compensation. A special note with public records, minutes of executive session minutes must be reviewed regularly and released to the public as soon as the stated purpose for the executive session protection has ceased. In my time here in the school system, I have never seen executive session minutes posted, nor have I ever heard this committee say it would be reviewing them for release as required by law. A citizen's right to request and obtain this kind of district information is a legal one, and no citizen in Medfield or anywhere else should be intimidated by the sheer action of exercising those legal rights. I would add that our own school attorney, Andy Waugh, addressed the school committee regarding the new public records law on January 9th, and one of the points he stressed was the need to post commonly requested public record documents on the website. He suggested effective July 1st. Strangely, on the meeting notice for the January 9th school committee meeting, Andy Waugh's presentation on the new public record law was left off of the legal notice that was publicly posted in advance of that meeting. If anyone wants to see the copy of that notice, I have it here. It was the one that was stamped by our town clerk. I also emailed Dr. Marsden and the chair about this oversight in January at the time, so mentioning this tonight should come as no surprise. I would just encourage all of our citizens in the town and elsewhere to use the law to their favor to get the information that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for your input. Does anybody else have anything this evening? Okay, excellent. So for the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have March 13th, April 3rd, and April 24th.
I move to approve the March 13th, April 3rd, and April 24th minutes.
If I can ask a clarifying question, I was not a member of school committee on March 13th, so I wouldn't be able to approve those, but I could approve the other two. Should we do this in two batches?
Sure, yeah, we vote each one.
Okay, great,
So,
thank you.
okay, yeah, so you would
First one?
just, right, so we'll do the first one for March 13th, and then you just abstain from voting. So is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For the April 3rd,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And April 24th,
So moved.
a second?
You got a second that over? Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I wasn't there, Francine, so there's no way. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is new business, so it's the Elementary World Language Study Group presentation.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Kim and Ellen will be doing a presentation tonight. There's also other members of the committee here. They've worked really hard for almost a full year, meeting monthly. I know Anna Mae was a part of that group. And they did some great work, so they're going to present that tonight and make some recommendations for going forward. So thank you.
So I just want to thank you folks for taking the time to listen to us and our recommendations and kind of get the feel for what we did for about a year of meetings. Also want to thank, there's a few teachers from the World Language Department that are here tonight supporting the whole cause, so I want to thank them and a few members of the committee who are here as well. So thank you, everybody, for making this a easy, sort of supportive time. So this is who we are. We started in January of last year, and we moved through till December of this year. And this gives you an idea of who is on the committee. You can see it's kind of heavily language teachers. But that's what you get when you ask for volunteers for a language committee, I guess. So we had a very amenable group of people, a lot of people that were already very much in favor of talking about world language and already saw a lot of the benefits of world language. But Kim and I are going to present this PowerPoint that we took from the report that you folks have in front of you. So you have the report. We tried to summarize it. We have 15 slides altogether. So it was a little bit of a daunting task trying to pull it all down and make it into 15 slides from, I don't know, 10 meetings? 10 meetings, each one was about 2 hours long. So there was a lot of discussion with a lot of work in between, right? So there's a lot of discussion, but we're going to try to sort of hit on the major points. I apologize if I forget anything. Kim's going to jump in if I do. I'll try to do the same. So, and then we'll move forward from there. Yep, okay. So these were our goals, and Dr. Marsden came to our first meeting and basically charged us with these as our major goals. He helped set the tone for our meetings, which were always very, very collaborative, and we learned a lot from each other, talking about different articles, working on surveys, and just kind of exchanging ideas back and forth with each other. But we tried to stick with this on every meeting. We didn't always stick exactly with this because there are a lot of details to talk about, but we did review our current elementary world language program, and we did, you'll see at the end, we did come up with some recommendations, two that kind of came out as the major ones, and then some other recommendations that were certainly on our list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through the first few meetings, where a lot of it was discussion and forming surveys and that kind of thing. And then the meat of the meetings, and meeting 9 is sort of when we started putting everything together, and Kim's going to present those, the findings more so from that. But the first meeting was pretty straightforward. We got to know each other. We set some norms for the group, and we talked about the group charge, came up with a plan for the next couple of meetings. And we did some began doing research and review of model programs. I should say from the get-go that Kim and I did a lot of work up front to come up with model programs. We researched and we had a shared folder, and people went in and they read different models and different research and then reported back to the committee at different points throughout the first few meetings. So we were trying to get sort of everybody on a level playing field so we all kind of understood the background of world language research and also the background of our program in Medfield, which we started on the second meeting. Kim and I and Donna Olson, who was also on the committee, explained sort of how we started world language in Medfield, where we had come in the few years that we have had it, and we continued that for a couple more meetings, which you'll see from the next slide. But we also started talking about articles, and basically few people would report on different articles. And although it didn't come through on the research slide here, one of the things that came through in all of the research that we did was the ACTFL, which is the American Council for Teaching Foreign Language recommendations for elementary programs, that you'll see at the very end is one of our recommendations, recommends a 3 times per week meeting minimum and 90-minute minimum for any kind of FLES program. So. And so the next meeting we continued our talking about the background and how we came to be where we are today, which is even different than where we were last year when we were meeting in terms of the world language program in Medfield. We continued talking about the articles and the research, and then the next meeting we began to draft the survey. So we drafted 2 surveys altogether. In this meeting, we started drafting a survey that went home to parents, and we took in a lot of information from the different committee members, and we looked at some old surveys that had been done as well. It's starting to go dark a little bit? Okay. Did that just go dark?
Yeah.
That one did.
But not that one.
Okay. And we worked on the surveys. It took a while to put the survey together. Actually, in the end, Kim and Kelly Campbell, who's not here tonight but was also on the committee, and I finalized that draft of the survey, not in the actual meetings, but again, we worked on that till pretty much the end of the year, and then our big sort of task going into the fall was to determine our timeline for when we were going to send out the survey and also the teacher survey, which we ended up sending out sort of back to back in the fall because we figured Kim had done some research and learned that the fall was a pretty good time, not at the very beginning of school, but a little bit after, to get a good amount of people to actually fill in the survey and come back. And we were pretty happy with the results and the amount of people that did it. And we started to brainstorm recommendations even back then, even before we had the survey results, based on the research. So these were some basic research-based recommendations. Again, the ACTFL one that I mentioned before isn't on here because that was just sort of obvious because it's a recommendation by the standard bearer of our discipline. But these were other ones that we gleaned from the different articles that we read and discussed. Am I done, or do I have one more? Yeah. Okay. So integrating the curriculum with the regular classroom teachers was something we actually talked quite a bit about. And the world language teachers that were present in the room, we had a lot of ideas that we bounced around about how we could work with classroom teachers, given the time and the opportunity to make the curriculum a little bit, to make it more integrated into what is being done in the classroom. And that's sort of very similar to the second one on here, incorporating the key concepts, and then communicating with parents and the community and the classroom teachers, which we feel we've already made some progress with, just in terms of the world language blog that we have this year and getting more information out to teachers and the community, which Kim's going to talk a little bit more about when she gets to that part in the survey. Then in the fall, our big task was getting the surveys out and getting them, getting the information back in and then discussing them. So really the next couple of meetings, we spent working on the surveys, getting the surveys out, figuring out when we were going to analyze the data and how we were going to go about doing that. And take it away.
See, we're only 2 meetings away from the end.
But there's a lot of meat in these ones, I'd say.
Yeah. We'll wait just 1 second. Okay, so I get to do the fun part, where we surveyed both parents and teachers, and we tried to make the surveys as similar as possible so that we really could compare them. And although I'm not pulling out everything on this presentation, it is in your report. And I just would like to point out a few things. First of all, tremendous response. We had 574 parent responses, which I figure is about 72% of the parents that we surveyed, and 148 of them took the time to write narratives. Equally impressive, we surveyed about 102 teachers, and we got 75 responses. 50% were classroom teachers, 46% were either specialists or special ed assistants. And then all 100% of the teachers that were surveyed actually took the time to also answer some of our narrative questions. So the first thing, one of the first questions we asked, do you believe that it's important to have an elementary world language program? You can see parents, 95% believed, 87% of our teaching staff. So super. This is fitting right in with everything that we were believing. As Ellen said, we were a bit of the choir in this group. Another question that we asked was, what languages do you think that we should be teaching at the elementary level? And no surprise, Spanish, Chinese, which we already have, but also a very large percentage wanted to see French in addition. So then this is where it gets a little interesting. We asked the question, do you feel that knowing the ACTFL regulations or requirements or suggestions, do you believe that we should increase the frequency, the number of classes that we have for elementary language? Parents said 74% yes, increase to at least 3 times a week. Some even said 5 times a week. 75% of the teachers surveyed said, no, the frequency should stay the same. And I believe we've teased that out in a slide that is to come as to why that discrepancy exists. So then we also thought this was really interesting. We asked everybody when they thought the elementary language program should begin. If it begins in 2nd grade now, what are their thoughts? 72% of parents felt that it should start in either kindergarten or 1st grade, so at Memorial, and 51% of the teachers felt the same way. So we were pretty impressed with that. So how do you pull out all the information in 148 narratives for the parent survey? What we quickly realized was there were categories or themes that emerged, and many people were saying similar things. So although I don't have every single thing listed here, the categories that we pulled out, 75% feel as though elementary language should start at Memorial. The surveys also really clearly told us that we as a district had some work to do in terms of communication, and some things that wouldn't cost money, some things that we could do, as Ellen said, we could do right now. Just improving the communication, having written protocol, so that everybody understands what the program is. And then we also were really humbled at the overwhelming support for elementary language. It was really heartwarming, and I'm sure you will agree with me, to hear parent after parent saying, thank you, we're so glad you're doing this. Other districts don't have this, and it felt very validating. And then the whole piece about adding French, it was significant. Not only do the parents feel that we should be doing Spanish and Chinese, they also think we should be adding French. Oh, and over 50% do not want homework. That was a very common theme. So we did the same thing with the teacher survey. We pulled out those categories of comments, and I think I wanted to start with the fact that there was not one single teacher that would say there shouldn't be language acquisition at the elementary level. But then this is the teasing out that I was talking about. They feel really strongly that the schedules as they are disjointed and fragmented, that they really can't support adding more language time unless that master schedule is really looked at and overhauled. And then the other thing that they brought out loud and clearly that we already knew was integration is a key word. And with standards, we're seeing integration as a key word across the board. So how can we teach everything that we have to do? Students, everything is connected. So how are we going to do that is the question, but it definitely is something that teachers believe we should. So we get to the last meeting, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the process called Dotocracy, but it's actually a consensus building activity that when you first hear it, you think, does that really work? And it really does. We had a very serious conversation about consensus also. Consensus doesn't mean that every single person in the room agrees 100% with everything. It means that we agree to compromise and that when we walk out of the room, we can 100% support what the group decided. And this was a very collaborative group. We worked so well together. We listened to each other. We didn't always agree, but this was a perfect experience, I think. What happened was at the 9th meeting, we said, okay, you've read all these articles, you've seen other districts, what they can do, you've heard what the program is, you know what the national organizations say, and you've heard what the parents and teachers are saying. Put all that together and on your own, without anyone's advice, decide what are your top 3 recommendations for the school committee and Dr. Marsden. So that was everyone's homework. They then sent Ellen and I the emails. We put them on chart paper. The chart paper was all around the room. We realized that there were some duplicates, and so we crossed out the duplicates, and we also felt that there were some things that really could be combined. So after doing that work, we came out with 13 recommendations. Knowing that we couldn't give you 13, we gave everyone 5 dots, those sticky dots, and said, okay, spend them. Choose your top 5. Which ones do you feel strongly about? And it's a great exercise because these 2 recommendations that are on the screen right now are the 2 that received every single person's dot. So we didn't even have to really talk about it. But I want to make sure that it's clear this first one is a biggie because it was one of those combinations. So what the committee is recommending to the school committee and Dr. Marsden is that we should make a significant shift in curriculum design, that integration. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that time is allotted for people to do that work and that money is budgeted. And then the second big recommendation is to increase the frequency of world language instruction to more than 2 times a week. So in addition to those 2, we really wanted to bring to your attention several other recommendations that had significant votes. The adding French to the elementary program received many, many votes from the group. Building a master schedule that would provide that extra time was a real deal breaker. We also talked about developing a systematic communication system so that all those things that I talked about before are clear to parents and teachers, because we believe that teachers might not have been able to make as educated a decision as possible because they didn't have some of the information that we had. And we want to make sure that they do. And then also to begin world language in kindergarten. And that we're not recommending what that looks like. It might be an after-school program, might be something phased in. It could be a cultural curriculum at Memorial, but we do strongly believe that it should start at Memorial.
I think these recommendations we've decided had significant votes, but they are also in the order of significant, significance. So in other words, the next one down was the French, and then the next, and the next.
And I believe in the report, I even put in a few more. Got them all in, one way or the other. So just in closing, if in fact we do aspire for our Medfield Public School students to become culturally proficient global citizens, which means that all graduates, these are the things that need to happen, they're going to be capable of proficient and creative engagement in a language other than English, gain an understanding of and investment in other cultures, and develop compassion for and commitment to people around the world. In addition, by beginning language study in kindergarten, Medfield Public School students will gain significant cognitive and academic benefits. Thank you very much. We'd love to take questions or comments.
So could you explain integration, what, like a real world example of what that would mean, a real example, and then also how does that create budget? What kind of increase in budget would be needed for that?
Well, integration, I believe, would mean something, for example, like there's, say, a unit in math that students are doing in the classroom that could be reinforced or enriched by doing it also a similar unit using like the same type of vocabulary and the same type of thinking in the world language as well. It's really hard for me to say exactly what the budget implications are. I think that a lot of the budget implications would be making sure that there is time for planning this and money for people to write the curriculum to go along with this. Because this isn't like a box that you open up and it's already done, right? This is something that has to be done with collaboration and people working together.
So R&D would be a possible
R&D would be a
place
big
where
one,
we,
yeah.
right.
And, or job embedded days. Yeah.
What about how many FTE, just setting aside the R&D and the integration, just the bringing French to the elementary level and adding the time that you recommend, how many FTEs are you talking about for that?
That's also a really
That's a good
difficult
question.
question to answer because it again, will depend a lot on the schedule. So increasing the amount of times meeting doesn't necessarily, so we have the 90 minutes, which is what ACTFL recommends, but we don't have the 3 times per week. So for some, I'm again a little bit biased, but for some of the younger grades, I wouldn't necessarily think that they need more than a 30-minute meeting, but 30 minutes 3 times a week as opposed to 45 minutes twice a week. But the FTE piece is a little bit harder for me to answer because of the schedule, right? Because I don't really know how that would get scheduled. That's like a big question mark in my head. I don't know how that would happen. We haven't gone that far.
Isn't that part of my struggle here? Is I've always been a proponent of elementary language, but the reason we can't figure out that schedule is because if you go to the National Science Foundation, ask them how many minutes of science you should have in a week. Or you go to the NEA and say how many minutes of performing arts or visual arts, or National Reading Foundation, or whatever the foundations are, right?
Yeah.
You add all those minutes together, you're going to get about a 50-hour school week, is my best guess.
Yeah, I don't really know.
It's certainly going to be longer than we have now.
Yeah.
I actually can speak to that a little bit, having built Dale Street's schedule for many years. And we didn't have the extra 30 minutes that we do starting this year, so it is doable. It's just you have to be very creative how you work the schedule, and sharing staff is tricky when you come to that piece of it. So that has implications also. But I believe that a master schedule is just a big, huge puzzle, and that when you know what all the pieces are, you can make it work.
Right, except we have the puzzle that we put together. Now, what we're talking about is adding more pieces. And
Well, not necessarily more, but different, because we already have the 90 minutes. So if we could do 3 30-minute or 3 45, 4 and 5, she's looking at me.
No, I mean, I don't think we really got that far. I do think.
And I don't
that-
think that was even our charge, and Dr. Marsden can talk about that, but I think as administrators, we're gonna have to take
Yeah, I
a
mean,
look
I
at
think
these.
it can be done. The school I was a principal at 15 years ago, we had 180 minutes of foreign language instruction a week. So that meant every kid, K to 5, or 1 through 5, got 30 minutes a day. But
5 days a week.
5 days a week. But there's some caveats there. 7-hour school day. You don't have that.
Right.
So there's your 7-hour. And what happened was, we added 30 minutes to the school day and then added language after, because we felt that instructional core was never gonna be touched by anything else. So by respecting that first, then we added language in, and we could do it, and there was not a lot of impact in terms of the instruction and learning of your literacy, of your mathematics, of your science, and your social studies. So that happened first and provided a really good structure for that to work. Now, when those kids had 5 years of language and came out of 5th grade and went to middle school, they were using high school textbooks at that point as 5th graders. So I've seen the benefit of what can really happen if you are committed as a district and you are committed as a school to really make this happen. But there's a lot of moving pieces, as they say. The sharing of staff makes it very difficult. We share a lot of staff, and Ellen's staff is bouncing around to 2 or 3 schools, and some of them may be doing a middle school class, an elementary class, and bumping up to high school. So that makes it more problematic, but also makes it more cost effective. So we could hire more people and maybe not be FTEs, but just put them part-time in different buildings and it would work. But that's just more bodies too. So it's pretty complex. It can be done. I agree with Kim, it can be done, but I think from this particular study that there's definitely some work to do. And that number one, Kim, can you go back to that number one recommendation that you guys had?
I can.
So that number one recommendation, as Kim said, was complex. I mean, there are many, many, many layers to that. So what you're saying in that recommendation is that you're gonna have general ed teachers who are already collaborating and working with special education teachers and ELL teachers to now do that with our world language teachers and to develop curriculum around it. You could take the curriculum and break it up into 6-week sessions and say, okay, we're gonna do a unit every 6 weeks and involve all the different areas in to work together and collaborate. But that takes an awful lot of time to plan. When we're already asking those general ed teachers to do that with special education teachers, ELL teachers, students on 504s, it's a lot. So that one recommendation is pretty complex. It's more than just, it's more than just curriculum and throw some money at it. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, that's multiple
The time,
years
yeah.
of work there. That's a
Yes.
3, 4, 5-year project, just doing number one.
Right.
Certainly number two can be done easier, because it's more structural. It's not, I mean, that gets into the belief system of teaching and learning, and there's a lot of work there, so.
But I do think that shift is across the board, that it's not just about world language.
It definitely
We'll
is.
be introducing the new science standards
Correct.
next week, and I know the first thing teachers are gonna say is, I don't have enough time.
Right.
And they really need to have more than they do, so if there's a way to systematically look at the integration across disciplines, like Jeff said, it's a long-term project, but it's exciting.
But as Kim and I spoke about last week, I mean, the pendulum has gone back now.
Right.
This integration piece was all we did 20-something years ago in elementary classrooms. And then standards came in, and we got away from that, and we almost departmentalized elementary and said, okay, we're gonna go from here to here to here. And now people are kind of pushing back on standards and saying, let's integrate it and make it all one big learning experience, instead of just having it isolated into different silos of learning.
Right.
So we're kind of going back to the way it was 20-something,
Not
which
surprising,
worked pretty
really.
well 20-something years
Yeah.
ago. But I think that's where we're moving in that direction.
Well, and I have a couple of questions, and Kim too, about current benchmarks for learning for kids, at the 2nd and 3rd grade level and the 4th and 5th grade level. What you're expecting of them right now. Because I do hear that by 12th grade, they're supposed to be doing this. But specifically, what are they supposed to be doing at 2nd and 3rd, 4th and 5th? And then how would this integration curriculum design and more sessions, although perhaps not more time, bump those up? And I think I have a related question in that there was one mention within the survey around that perhaps kids with special needs, kids on 504s, and SPED need more support. And I was also a little disappointed to say that perhaps they could be exempted. And I felt as though there was probably no other area in the Medfield Public Schools in which we say, but this you don't have to do.
Right.
So kind of how was the group thinking about that?
So, as a department anyway, in the elementary levels, in second, third, fourth, and fifth grade, we really have put an emphasis on speaking, on the oral proficiency, and we've stayed away from writing as much as possible. So while they don't necessarily achieve like a whole actful level because they have to do all of the skills to be able to move up a level. But when kids start, so it goes like novice low, novice mid, novice high.
Okay.
So that's kind of where, and all of the elementary they're in that novice range. So our hope is by giving them more exposure to the spoken language and the listening and directions in the class and stuff, that piece of it will be picked up more quickly when they get into the sixth grade and that they can move up
And is there an
levels.
evaluation process of that
Well,
currently
it's
at this?
through the teachers,
in the elementary level?
all of their student learning goals, all of the teachers in the department have student learning goals that are based on either, we call it presentational speaking or interpersonal speaking, and so they all have tasks that they check in with a group of students, of like a sampling of students twice a year or 3 times a year.
Okay, so
Which is a lot to do really in the
Yeah.
2 times that they meet, but
Right.
they do it.
And another, just a little interjection, it's been interesting that we're watching those things shift
Right.
too, because we originally started with a baseline of everybody, it was their first year, and now as the kids are growing. So it's been a real challenge for the teachers in the upper grades to be looking at a whole variety of skills that are coming to them.
And ironically enough, we are shifting the focus at the middle school and the high school as well towards a proficiency-based
Right.
curriculum. So everything in our discipline is kind of shifting away from a traditional teaching
Right.
by grammar, by rote learning, by memorizing, et cetera. Like, we are moving totally away from that, and it's all about how kids can use the language, not what they know about it, but how they can use it in context.
And so children who do have interventions on 504s or children who do have IEPs, where is the support right now and where do you envision it coming in?
Great question.
Well, I think it's a little bit, right at the moment, I don't know that I don't actually know. I think that most of the kids, we want as many kids as possible to stay in the program. I think some kids get pulled because there's just not enough time in the day, to be perfectly honest,
It's
for them to get
very-
the support that they need.
Very, very few right now, and we have the thought that we want students to participate. And it's the exception, there's just, a very few exceptions to that rule. However, that did come out in the survey, that there are people on the other side of that who really want us to look at the support. So if a student is on an IEP and they're in Kristen Levangi's 4th grade Spanish class, and they have an aide, should that aide be in the Spanish class as well? So we have a lot of work to do in that particular area.
I think that philosophically, if we are saying that every child in Medfield should be proficient in a language,
Right.
then that should be every child to the best of their ability in the way
I
that
agree.
we
I
would make
agree.
accommodations
Yeah.
across
Yep.
the board.
I'm just saying
And
that's
that
not
needs
always
to
what
be there.
happens, is
I
my
know.
point. But philosophically, I agree with you 100%.
And I would make a push for making that part of
we-
number one.
I'm married to a language teacher, and I hear him talk about that all the time, where often he has a complete mixture of students and doesn't even know, well, he knows if they're on an IEP, but what would best help them succeed.
Right.
So I know Medfield does a better job than his district, but it is something we are taking seriously and we need to continue to work on.
We need to do that better, no
Yes,
question about it.
absolutely.
No question.
And there was actually a question that came out of the superintendent advisory committee. One parent wanted to know, and you mentioned it, the communication piece, communicating to parents what are our expectations, the standards, et cetera. So this one parent said, so with languages starting younger, are kids now going to be taking AP Spanish their sophomore year? She just wanted to know the plan.
Right.
And where we're headed, because it is shifting for the better.
Right.
And I would say at the moment, I don't see that happening.
Neither
You
did
know.
I, but.
And I wouldn't know why we would want that to happen necessarily.
Yeah.
Because of the way the curriculum's designed, students can reach a higher level before they get to AP. They don't need to be in AP
Yes.
just to be
I agree, yeah.
proficient in a language. Do you
But
know?
her point was, she wanted to know the plan.
Right.
In terms of, you know, where we're heading,
And
the
to be
benchmarks.
honest, like, when you look at the expectations for a student learning another language, when they start in, say, 6th or 7th grade, the expectations, it's the rare student. We've done well in Medfield, getting kids through AP and getting good AP scores, but most kids, the majority of the kids, are not in that boat, because they start too late.
Yes,
They
right,
start in
yes,
6th grade.
yes.
So more students should be able to get there, but I wouldn't necessarily say you get there sooner.
Right.
I want to add that I absolutely love the world language program that Medfield has done so far. I agree. I think that I'd love to see the 30 minutes 3 times a week. Personally, I'd like to see it every day, but I know that with schedules and budgeting, I know that it's a multi-layered, it's, you know, pieces of an onion trying to get all this down. But I definitely see such a difference between my older one who started later in the world program and my youngest who started, that the love of the language, what they learn. I mean, we just traveled and they were using their language, you know, and so I have one that just switched to Spanish as a 6th grader. And the amount of support that he received starting a new language to try and challenge himself and wanted, you know, the other two is speaking Spanish and he's like, I want to speak Spanish. And the amount of, you know, kind of outside ideas that the Spanish teacher, Mrs. Batts, gave him was incredible. I mean, you know, gave him apps to use and this to use, that it started, you know, this momentum with the language that is so impressive to see a kid who just started, you know, who's actually kind of behind someone who's in younger grades, to try and catch up and learn to love the language is so impressive. And I have to just give one little plug to a world language teacher. Mrs. Manning, who we were going to Spain, my older daughter doesn't even have her as a Spanish teacher this year, had her, gave a whole itinerary for when we were in Madrid. I mean, phenomenal. That, you know, and those are the things that I think teachers go above and beyond. I had to say, because I was so blown away by someone doing this. Teachers are so crazy busy. I don't know how they do it. And the fact that someone took this kind of time to kind of show the love of the country, like all these things that we're talking about, not just to learn the language and so that you can speak it, to learn about the culture and the people and the differences. Like, those are the things that bring people together. So,
Kind of passionate.
oh yeah, it was amazing, amazing. But that kind of passion, you know, kind of plant seeds in other people to develop that kind of passion. So I think it's so important and so impressive. So
We'll make sure.
that's my little plug on the world language.
Both of those plugs.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
I had one other question about the French, the recommendation with respect to French. We haven't had French at the elementary school for a while. Are we, when kids get into high school, right, okay. When kids get to the high school, are we seeing a real drop-off in French enrollment? Or is it sort of coordinate with what you'd expect when you add the Mandarin program in?
I don't think there's been a drop-off. I think that there's been a pretty steady interest in French and Mandarin, and, I mean, pretty much across the board. We've had a enrollment drop a little bit across the district, so, but it's been pretty steady with a little bit of fluctuation, like one section, one way or another in some years, but the Mandarin enrollment and the French enrollment have been pretty similar, and the Spanish is
Always the
always
highest.
big. Our Latin enrollment's down a little bit for next year, but that doesn't start till the 9th grade.
I'm just curious, from the committee's perspective, what's your reaction to adding French in elementary school? Just curious.
You mean
I love it.
Memorial?
No, just as an option in elementary school.
Oh, well,
I love it.
You're talking to the
Well, I
woman
know.
who's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When I'm
May and I like.
2-year-old in
I
McGuire's
love it.
office.
You know, I think that that's fantastic to give them the option.
I have a real concern about fitting it in.
Yeah, that's, I was just.
But I would, but,
Thinking about the time I spent on the school day committee, in which we were saying this year, half an hour is so that you can stuff a couple more pounds of potatoes into that bag.
and I
every
think
day.
that was a critical
And
piece
said
that we
wouldn't
talked
add
about.
anything.
No, but
And
in the,
specifically at
in the
Memorial, right.
world language study group, one of the biggest pieces, the schedule. You're right, we can't
It keeps coming
put
back,
10
yeah.
pounds of flour in a 5-pound bag. That's
Right.
just not fair
But if you have
to
it all at the
anyone.
same time, so if you have all the languages at the same time, and you have 3 sets of kids going out, Mandarin, Spanish, French, it's not really messing with the schedule too much. Because the kids are gonna be out anyway at that certain time. so.
And I suppose the one little, I loved this group, I mean, these were my people, you know? And it was very well directed, well guided, thank you. You were incredible women with this charge, I know, really, and the report you wrote, anyways.
Thank you.
But I think, yeah, the schedule is just the critical piece. We just need to nail that down. It just wouldn't be fair. But I see.
I think it
As a
would be
district
fair to
priority,
say
not
that,
just
that
within
the
Lincoln.
Yeah.
committee felt strongly that if that didn't happen, we couldn't be
Yeah.
as enthusiastic about the other recommendations. I think that's fair to say, right?
That is fair to say.
If which didn't happen.
If the schedule overhaul.
Oh, yeah, so the one, this is what it was, the one minor disappointment I had was that we had no one representing Memorial there.
Right.
Because it was on the table, and it was unfortunate because we wanted to hear the voice of Memorial,
Right.
because if in fact it does affect them.
Well, they were
no-
surveyed though, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they were
Yeah.
surveyed, yes, yes, yes.
And we sort of had wished we had more classroom teachers on the committee as well.
Right,
That was another
right.
piece of it, but we tried, they were surveyed as well, and we tried to anticipate some of what they would say, just by
Yeah.
virtue of knowing who they are and what their feelings are, but.
And people were very forthcoming on those comments,
They were,
in the
yes.
survey that we got.
And every single teacher did
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, exactly.
So Jeff, where are you going from here?
So it's part of our strategic plan, it's part of Medfield 2021, that we look at this year and then, continue to look at it again, and then possibly do something for FY19, whether that be after-school program or looking at doing 3 languages element, whatever that may be. So I think that we'll be working together and probably get that group together again.
Yeah.
A couple of times a year versus every month and see what the progress would be. But it's still, moving forward. It was really a good opportunity to kind of look at what we're doing. Based on the amount of feedback I got the first 3 years I was here about it, it was a good time to sit down and go
Are
through
these-
it and
Are
get
these
some.
2 priorities you wouldn't try to tackle those in FY19 or start that, or?
I think we could tackle 2. I
The
don't
second
know if we
one.
could tackle, one is a big one.
It's layered.
Yeah, one will be a 5-year plan, so I don't know if we're ready to
Definitely start.
discuss that.
Well, I know I meant
Talk
start,
about it.
yeah, I just meant start.
but I'm
Is
not sure we could-
integration the same as interdisciplinary? I'm trying to get the lingo down.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think I'm sort of agnostic about French, I think that's just part of a process of continuing to introduce a more global perspective. The more, I think that whole idea of the cultural curriculum is critical. Our kids are not, it's a pretty homogeneous community, and I
Right,
just think the
right.
more of that exposure is a really huge benefit.
Mhm.
And that
That-
builds empathy, and that's what
Absolutely.
we want
Right.
Yeah,
our children
right.
to be,
I
is
agree.
more empathetic people, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Really well done.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well done, thank you. Next item on the agenda, the school committee meeting dates for 2017, 2018.
Madam Chair, those draft dates were in your packet. Very similar, a couple of changes from this year, but similar in terms of their timing. Be happy to change anything or
Thank you.
whatever you
Thank
like.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all.
Good night.
Jeff, when's town meeting?
I went downstairs, town meeting is the 30th this
Okay,
year.
so that's what-
Because there are 5 Mondays in April.
Okay.
So it's always the last Monday in April.
Yep, all right.
So it's actually vacation week, another week of school, town meeting that Monday after.
Wow.
Something-
Gift.
Something
Yeah.
to keep an eye on if we were we
Exactly.
needed an override and we wanted to vote after town meeting,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of time in there before,
Right.
between town meeting and when we lose people for the summer.
And I was thinking it was, we had a week to remind people, instead of the
Yeah.
vacation week
That's
to
a good
remind
point,
people.
yeah.
So it works out.
To our favor.
Is this a vote tonight or just for consideration?
Yes.
Oh.
Move the recommendation, superintendent.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So we'll get those posted up on the website and the town clerk, and we're good to go for that.
Next item on the agenda are the school lunch prices for 2017, 2018.
Madam Chair, members of the committee have asked Michael to give us the explanation on this, and I think we went through this a couple of years ago. Very similar process in terms of the reimbursement from the federal government, and Michael can go through that.
I first want to just say thank you to Dawn Lavati, our food service director. She's done a wonderful job for the past 3 years. We have introduced more fresh fruits and produce to the menu. She brought in the program Farm to School. The biggest accomplishment is that we were able to increase participation from 25% 3 years ago to 55% district-wide. So that was a big accomplishment.
Incredible, incredible numbers.
Yeah, so in 3 years, I mean, it is incredible to see the increase in participation. We're also seeing that more kids are participating at the Memorial School. I think we're at the 60% mark at the Memorial School. So as those kids go through the system, we're going to see those participation rates increase. And then, you know, we've also increased staff development with programs such as food allergies, Surf Safe, and then just basic training in the kitchen. The other thing that helps the department, just a little overview, is that we participate with tech in the collaborative purchasing, and currently we have 94 districts in the state of Massachusetts that participate in the food service bidding, which drives the cost down as volume goes up. If you look in your handout, I attached the USDA memo, which I'm going to go into explanation of why the rates have to go up. It's a federal requirement, and it's something that we're required to do and look at every few years. And that's a 4-page memo from the USDA that you have in there. I also put in your packet a comparison of elementary and secondary school lunch prices across this area. So you'll see this Dover, Sherburne, and Ashland, and I think Dedham and Wayland and Norton, those schools are in there. And you can see that they have already increased their prices to take effect next year, which is due to the USDA requirement changes. We're in that process right now. So the USDA requires that the law, I believe, changed in 2010. It was Public Law 111, 296, which requires Section 205, which requires the school food authorities, which we participate in the National School Lunch Program, to ensure that schools are providing the same level of support for lunches served to students who are not eligible for free and reduced price lunches. The way that's calculated is we're going to take the fiscal year 2018 federal reimbursement, which is $3.30 as of now. We need to minus out what the paid federal reimbursement is, which is 44 cents. So next year, what they call as the minimum requirement will be $2.86. So we have to charge $2.86 in order to qualify and receive federal assistance for our program. For anyone,
that's our average, right?
That's the average for anyone that's in the free or reduced program. So in order to achieve that, if you go to the next page, you'll see that the way that's calculated is we take our elementary current price, which is $2.50. We take our middle school and high school price, which is $3. We add it together, divided by 2 to get the $2.75. So $2.75 is under the minimum requirement of the federal requirement, which next year is going to be $2.86. So in order for us to receive federal dollars, we need to bring our minimum requirement to at least $2.86. So we are proposing tonight that we increase lunch prices by 25 cents. So our elementary current price is $2.50 to $2.75. Our secondary lunch is $3 to $3.25, and we're including teachers' lunch from $3.75 to $4. So the new weighted average price in Medfield next year would be $2.88. That weighted average is determined on 3 factors, which is they look at nationally, where other lunches are, where the cost of running a food service department, and then the third thing is that they look at inflation to determine what the following year's weighted average is. So I can't stand here today and say that we're not going to come in front of you again next year because we don't know those figures right now. But what I can say is that we'll meet the requirement for next year by increasing it by 25 cents. The goal will be that we don't come in front of you for another couple of years, and that the federal government will keep the $2.86 as the weighted average. But we can't guarantee that.
What's the current weighted average, Michael?
It's
It's not 275. That's just the average between elementary and middle school. Right?
No, it's 278, I want to say, the current weighted average.
So there's no real choice. I mean,
There isn't a choice. I mean, if we're going to get federal assistance for...
How much is the federal assistance?
It's 44 cents on each meal.
How much is that?
Here in Medfield, I would have, we're talking about, depends on how many averages we have per month, but I believe our percentage is currently, we're talking about, 8 to 9% of the meals are either free and reduced. We usually are serving, about,
Oh, so it's a reimbursement on the
on
free
the
and
type
reduced
of,
meals.
correct, on the meal served. So,
Is what it is.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the increase?
So
lunch
moved.
cost? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll get that out before the end of the school year so parents can plan for that.
yeah,
If
we'll
you just
try to
try
get
to-
it out as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Maybe not include the USDA's letter, but somehow with an
Explain
explanation to
it.
parents
Yeah.
that
This wasn't.
we're not adding money.
Yeah, this isn't a budget.
To our
move. This is a.
coffers.
But
This
this
is a
isn't a
federal
revenue
requirement.
generator for us, it's a federal requirement.
Mhm.
We'll do that.
So we'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, and next item on the agenda is old business, fiscal year 18 budget discussion.
As I said earlier in the narrative, this is really a placeholder for anything that came up. Nothing's really come up since our budget was approved, other than I'd like to thank the town again for supporting our 4.62 budget. Certainly, a lot of work from this committee and the warrant committee to get to that number, and it was supported at town meeting, so I just want to thank the community for that. I don't know if anyone else has anything else, but nothing's come up since then.
Okay. And next item are donations.
Madam Chair, I have 3 donations this evening. First one, $424 to Wheelock School from the Wheelock PTO for noise-canceling headphones. $143.40 to Blake Middle School from the Box Tops for Education Program for the Blake gift account. $96.46 to the Wheelock School from the Wheelock PTO for lap desks. I ask that you approve those as written.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So included in your packet, Madam Chair, members of the committee, is the 6-month update on Goal 1 of Medfield 2021. Next month, we'll do the other goals, but Goal 1 was really heavy this year. We had 16 items that we're working on right now in the first year of this, and some of these will continue on to year 2, but I just want to give you an update. I'm just going to highlight 5 of those, and if you have any questions on any of the other ones, I'll certainly be able to answer those for you. Our first one was 111, which was development of a 3-year professional development plan. The professional development committee, and that's K-12 teachers and administrators. We've been meeting monthly for the past year, and we're pretty close. We're getting to the point where we're going to roll out the 3-year plan in August. We have a meeting next week, either this week or next week, in which we're going through, and we've modeled it after the high school's plan, where they have a staff handbook, which is all electronic, and we're modeling after the same way, which it will allow teachers to go on the website and click on different aspects of the professional development plan, including the priorities they picked, because we surveyed the teachers. They picked the priorities of what they think they need for professional development, and we're developing that 3-year plan around that. So I'm excited to give that to you in August, but we're on our way, and we've been working on that. It's really neat to get the vertical team together, K-12, because the needs that you see at say Memorial School are very different at Blake and are very different at the high school, and really good conversation. It's interesting when you get everybody in the same room. Elementary has no idea what high school does, and high school has no idea what elementary does. So it's really good to have that conversation in the same room. But that's moving along. We'll be happy to share that once that's done. 212 is collaborate with the Medfield Teachers Association to establish a Unit B contract for development department level evaluators. So we've been in conversation, as you know, with this for about a year now. Last week, we had our first meeting with the MTA, local MTA leadership and state level leadership to talk a little bit about what that Unit B contract might be. So we're going to continue to work over the summer on that. And again, the intent of that Unit B contract is to get those folks that are doing evaluations in Unit A out of the Unit A contract, because it's a little awkward for them to do evaluations of their peers when they're in the same bargaining unit. So we're talking about the department heads or content specialists for all disciplines. We're talking about the coordinators for special education, so there's 3 of those. Reading specialists who oversees the reading K-5. So those positions, only, I think we talked with the union, it's only about 9 positions. So MTA Boston didn't have a huge concern. Their only concern was it was one more contract for them to manage when there's only 9 people in it. But they didn't have an issue with the concept of Unit B for this group of people. So I'll let you know where we go. They're going to actually write back to us and let us know whether they're interested in doing that, but that will require the school committee present as we negotiate a full Unit B contract. So there's things around that, lots of things to discuss. Like, for instance, currently those folks are compensated on the teacher salary schedule with a stipend because of that position. There's Unit B contracts that are structured that way. There's Unit B contracts that have their own pay scale. So there's all kinds of things that we'll have to go through once we get into this process. But it's close to negotiating a contract from scratch in a year when we're about to go into full teacher contract negotiations again. So just some things to think about.
So this would be for next year?
It could be.
Okay.
So the conversation that we had was really about, in order for MTA Boston to take this on, they need membership to ask them to do this. So the conversations I've had with local MTA is, yes, they want to do this, so now it just takes a letter or whatever from them to Boston to kind of get it rolling. So it's going to be an interesting process. It won't be done overnight, so that's what we got to really think about, how we want to approach this, whether it gets put into the negotiations we're going to do anyway, or if it's a separate negotiation, if it happens in the summer or in the fall. I mean, all these things we have to consider as we go forward with this. If you want to go forward with it. I mean, you could say, no, we don't want to do this, but it was something that we thought was important enough to put in our plan and really try to do some housekeeping with that evaluation piece with the Unit B. Oftentimes, Unit Bs include assistant principals. It was very clear that they would not be, if it was up to me, would not be a part of that since they have an individual contract already. And that seemed to be acceptable at the time of the meeting last week. So we'll see where it goes. So that's another item. Revise the current induction and mentoring model to reflect the current DESE regulations. So we've been doing a lot of work on this. Kim has been spearheading that, doing a great job with it. One of the things that we've noticed has been really no formal training of our mentors, and we're going to be instituting that next year, where they have Teachers 21 works with our mentors to work with our new teachers. We raised the mentor stipend. It was, I think, a couple $100 a few years ago. Now it's $750, around where it should be, because there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. So we do have more mentors that want to participate based on the increase on that. But we've increased the expectations around meetings. So there's certain meetings that the mentors have to do with Kim and the new teachers that weren't in place before. But again, professionalizes this whole process. It's a really important process for new teachers. And Kim has done a really good job with this, and we're going to continue to work on that next year. Again, DESE changed the regulations, I think, 2 or 3 years ago on this.
So do you have, if you have more mentors wanting the jobs than you have jobs, do
No.
they? No,
No.
you don't.
Mm-mm.
So if you did, would you do an evaluation on whether they're appropriately, who makes the decisions?
So we would base it on, what we're gonna do going forward is base it on those who have taken the formal training. So if you've completed the formal training that we're gonna do in the fall, then you're first on the list to be a mentor. And we feel like that's an important piece. They have the training to do it, but also they've made the commitment to do the training. It's gonna be 3 full days of training, 24 hours of training, so we feel strongly about that. But that's how we would do it, Tim.
Do you need a department head to recommend them? Or,
They definitely talk to us about that.
Okay.
You know, so we go for who's interested first, and then, you know, we have some conversations around, we want to pair people that know what they're doing in terms of the
Yes.
mentoring, because there is a part of that, you know, it's not just, you know, how you doing, there's a lot to the mentoring piece. And
That's a huge piece, yeah.
managing the ups and downs of teachers in the first couple of years where, you know, they make it to Thanksgiving and they're really happy about that, and then, oh no, I have to make it to winter break, and, you know, so there's a lot of peaks and valleys that teachers have during this process. We want someone that can manage that and knows what they're doing, and has experience with it, and is good at it. So that's what we've been looking at. Just kind of fresh off what we were just talking about, 3.1.3, integration, explore interdisciplinary and project-based approach to curriculum pre-K to 12. So that we've been doing a lot of discussions around this. We just had 25 of our teachers do 3 days of training with ed tech teacher just on project-based learning, which has been great. So again, you have K to 12 in the room. So we had elementary teachers, middle school teachers, and high school teachers in the room. We had them do some reflections and feedback on what they thought the training. They loved it, and now excited about implementing some of this work. And you'll see that they've extended some of the R&D from this training. So that's going really well. And then lastly, 3.1.5, elementary world language review, plan, pilot, implement. I think you got a pretty good sense of where we are with that this evening. But we're going to, again, we reviewed the current literature, went through other programs, and now we're going to start look at how we can take the recommendations of this group and implement them into the district, if at all, based on some of the recommendations. But I think, you know, you saw there's another 11 that are there that we're working on, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And then next month, at the June 5th meeting, I'll have an update on the rest of the goals as well. So moving on. I know, Tim, we had talked about a dashboard with this. So what we've, if you're not this past town meeting, the town meeting before that, the town had a capital budget item to redo their website. And for $5,000, they threw us on that. So we're in that process, working with Christine and Owen. And I mentioned to them, we want to have some sort of dashboard where folks can just look and see where we are in our strategic plan. And they said they will be able to do that for us.
Cool.
But that's not progressing as quickly as I'd like it to, but it's progressing. But it takes a little bit longer, the developers, than we anticipated. So answer any questions, or we can wait till next time and we have all the other ones, but be happy to answer those.
are you gonna talk about the R&D?
I am.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was part of it, or,
So student services, in your packet, you had a letter or a memo explaining some of the changes in student services. As you know, Kathy was involved in that accident over April vacation, so she is really working from rehab right now, answering emails and doing some work for us. But she cannot come back to work for us for the rest of the school year. So Gina Delon, who has been our district coordinator for the last 5 years, has stepped in for the interim position for the next 2 months, and then also for next year as well. She was the assistant director of special education for Natick and served as their interim for a year prior to coming to Medfield. So she has this leadership experience. She's seen it from the district view and the central office view. So she was, you know, I thought a natural choice to fill this role for us. good relationship with parents, and I think we're going to meet with parents tomorrow night at CPAC and talk a little bit about that, but I think it makes the most sense for her to do that. So in terms of the structural changes, this was some of the budget stuff that we had talked about. As you remember from, I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before, we had to remove the second team chair from the budget and replace that with a BCBA who's going to be developing a program for our memorial for our students on the autistic spectrum at Memorial. So we only have the one full-time team chair that we added. However, during this budget year, FY17, we were able to increase the part-time chair at Memorial from a 0.5 to a 0.8. And we're going to add a 0.2 onto her next year to make her full-time. So the first change in structure for next year will be full-time team chair in pre-K through grade 1. So this person will do Meg will do all of the team meetings for early intervention, pre-K, K, and 1. So have that nice consistency there. Does a great job with parents, and she will chair all those meetings and run the entire IEP process for those 3 grade levels. We'll also have an early childhood coordinator, so someone that's going to be responsible just for the preschool, just working at the preschool, almost just to oversee that whole program, coordinate the curriculum and the programming, access K to 12, and then look at the programming pre-K to K. And this was something that they really felt strongly about, the way having it split up like that. It seems awkward to me, but they felt really strongly because Melissa Devine is doing this work now, has just finished her leadership program, so she is ready to go and can definitely oversee this preschool program and do it well, but has a real commitment to coordinating that access program K to 12. So she really wanted to stay to that and then look at the pre-K to K oversight. Again, those two work really well together, Melissa and Meg, and we're happy with that. Full-time team chair, so this is the new position in the budget. And this person, who has not been hired yet, is responsible for grades 2 through 6. And we picked 2 through 6 because we wanted to get all those transition years. So someone that can chair the meetings and do all the IEP, the entire process and paperwork for all kids on IEPs 2 through 6 and do those important transitions. Wheelock, Dale, and Blake. So that position is posted, and we hope to start interviewing for that next week. Special education coordinator, elementary, different configuration from this year. Nancy will work on programs, evaluation of staff, training our paraprofessionals, doing all that work. Again, the work she can't do a lot of because she's chairing meetings at the same time. So Nancy will do that. And again, the configuration is just a little bit different this year. She did not have kindergarten. Full-time team chair, so that's responsible for grades 7 through 12. That's expanded responsibilities. Last year, that was just a high school only position, and there was no team chair at the middle school. So that Heidi's doing that work right now, and she'll get into that position. And then secondary special education coordinator, responsible for all the coordination of programming 6 through 12. This person who's doing this now is Corey, who's leaving the district. We're hiring for this position as well. They were responsibility 6 through 12, so it was essentially doing team chair 6, 7, 8, and then program coordination 6, 7, 8, 9 through 12. So we've taken the team chair piece completely off that position, and it's just program development, training and working with staff, and evaluations. So it really frees people up to do what they're doing instead of doing 6 other jobs, which was the intent of this first restructure, with phase 2 of that next year, looking at adding additional folks for services and service providers for kids. Again, this is a model that works really well in a lot of districts. It's also a model that was recommended out of our program audit we did a year and a half ago. So pleased that we could get to this for next year. Been meeting with all the folks involved in this. They're really excited about it. It's what they've been asking for years now. And it makes most sense for them in terms of what their job responsibility is and how they can focus on what they do well and what they do best instead of trying to do 6 other things. So we're happy about it. I got some really good feedback. I sent an email to all parents with students with IEPs and 504s. They got all this information a little over a week ago and got some really good emails back from parents. So we'll see tomorrow when I'm at CPAC. I'm sure they'll have some feedback there as well. But that's where we are with the update.
Is Gina going to continue the out-of-district coordination?
So she's gonna do some of them, not all of them. So we have 23 students out, so she'll do some of them, and then we're gonna look when the school year starts. You know, we really hope that that's something that when Kathy is well again, can help us out with, because she knows the cases really well. But I know that Kathy's a couple months away from walking, so if she can do that and heal over the summer, that really the meetings for this start in October, November. We'd like to give her a small caseload to do that. So that's what we're thinking right now. If not, we'll have to bring someone else in to do that. But
It's a big changes.
it's a big reorg, you know. I think it's something that they were a part of and are really excited about. Finally, it's happening, you know, finally it's happening. And again, it would not be happening if we didn't have the support of you folks in the town, and at town meeting, because, you know, those two positions, if we didn't put those positions in, and we had to develop this program for Memorial without having a BCBA, we'd have at least 2, maybe 3 students out of district next year at that grade level. And I think, you know, philosophically, we have a hard time sending little kids out of district. And when we can develop a program, but also financially, you know, we'll save money that way as well. And then we'll start the search for a new director, November, December-ish, and get ahead of folks and not be caught like we were this year with, you know, one person, and we want to have more of an option than one person. That's for sure. Any questions on that? I know I sent that to you, and I sent it out to the parents as well. So the R&D, in your packet, you had it in R&D. We had our meeting last week, and we had some really great proposals from teachers, as you can see. So we funded a little over $60,000 in R&D for the summer. Some really, really good projects, and they're district-wide. Every school has projects listed in here. I just like to highlight some of them. You know, you have the common assessments that people continue to work on, but if you look at, there's a couple of social emotional learning grade 6, social emotional learning grade 7. We have some social emotional through wellness, that's K to 12. Power of positive thinking and mindfulness. So again, developing courses, developing curriculum around that so they can implement it in their classrooms. ELL strategic plan alignment, which is a really good one. You know, Gigi's doing that, and you know, she has done an incredible job with ELL this year, and now she's trying to align where we need to be with ELL, because our numbers keep going up. We're about 23, 24 kids right now, ELL, which is growth in the last 2 to 3 years. And fortunately, we hired Gigi a year and a half, 2 years ago now, and she is a crackerjack. She's a wonderful, great leader, knows what kids need, has spent a lot of years in the Boston Public Schools doing this work, and as a Medfield resident is really committed to the work, so we're happy to have her here. But I don't know if there's any questions on that. We'll do the similar thing as we did last fall. We'll have folks come in and present some of their projects to you, but just really well thought out projects that will help our kids and work with.
So what is it, so the individual teachers can go online and sign up for these?
So what they do is they write a proposal, and they explain what the project is, who's going to be involved in the project, how many hours it's going to take, and we pay 2 different rates, one for a leader of the project and one for those that are helping out with the project. So what they tend to do is overestimate the hours. So if a project was probably about 15 hours, sometimes folks put 30 in, they just overestimate, so we try to pare that down. So we were able to do almost every single project this year, all but one. And what we did is pare down. Some of the original request was 91,000. So just by cutting some hours on almost all of these, we were able to fund them all.
So like the mindfulness one, so they'll come up with a curriculum around that, or
Right.
an approach to introducing it.
Right, so that would either be one or two things, actually could be both for that particular one. Developing a course around that, because that particular teacher teaches a stress management class. So incorporating those things into our stress management class, but also doing a mindfulness course the following year.
Right.
You know.
Tell me a little bit about Diane Horvath doing social thinking. I think
So
that's really.
she's done a lot of work on that.
Okay.
She has done that for probably the last 2 years, and now this is an expansion of it. She's really centered that around Blake, and she feels like she can expand that to more kids and do some more work with that. So that was really just taking what you're already doing and improving it versus developing a whole new curriculum. So she's done some really good work.
Do we have any social emotional for the lower grades?
Let's see. I
Kathy
thought we had
Kathy
one with
Buckhorst was
wellness.
Yeah, Kathy, of course, had
I think, yeah, Kathy had one in there
a
somewhere.
Wheelock.
All right. And a question, so I'm assuming that, you know, we're tying this into the strategic plan.
Everything had to be part of it.
Yes, exactly.
So they could not, that was part of the requirement, they could not,
How did they
teachers
tie
could not,
it? Okay.
it had to be written how it supports the strategic plans.
Right.
Everything is in line with it.
Right. So say, for example, what was done last year in R&D, the various subjects, the English, I remember Gail Duffy came in. So do we make sure that every year, say, for example, if history wasn't touched last year
Right.
at the high school, for example, are we making sure something's getting done to keep people on their toes
So
kind
we
of thing?
encourage, but it is the summertime.
Yes.
So there's no requirement for anyone to be there, but I think, you know, the department heads really encourage their departments to do some of this. You'll see that if you were to count these up, the greatest representation of this is Blake.
Totally.
Because I would say that Nat makes us a huge priority.
Yeah.
And make sure that folks use this time to develop things. So I would say that, and that's probably the years I've been here, that's been consistent. That Blake has been the greatest representation of all this. But, you know, you see the project learning in there. I mean, it's everything that's tied into our strategic plan, and, you know, we're really, really happy with it. Some of them are retreads. Retreads by mean, they did them last year, now they're gonna improve and do more and more and more. Some are brand new. So we'll do the same thing, and maybe we'll do a few more this year than we did last year, but I think it's been very, very positive.
Sorry, can you remind me where are we on last year? Are we spending more, the same, or less than last year on R&D?
Same,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
60, I think it's almost 63, 62 and change.
Okay, great.
But professional development is down, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
is
we
that
think
being
about
made up
professional
by
development in three
coalition,
buckets.
or-
So the three buckets, professional development, R&D, the course reimbursement, which we're contractually obligated to do, 42,500,
Mhm.
and then whatever we put in there for conference and travel. So those are three different ways they can
Okay.
get, and that doesn't count the job embedded days or any other stuff that we do. That's just the budgeted. This is right, straight payroll to those teachers. Any questions? So I just have a few things for recognition, if I may. Just want to thank all the juniors and seniors and all the staff that came to the prom on Friday night. That was, it was the sharpest I've seen Chris look in a long time. So that, it was a great night, and, you know, it's really nice to see the kids get all dressed up and have a good time. So we're really pleased about that, and Gillette did another great job. Good food, and security is always great there, so we always feel safe with our kids there. Google came to Medfield today to visit Dale Street, and they're doing some research on some of their Chromebooks. So they want our kids to look at some things and test. So they did that in 4 classrooms this morning. That went really well, good feedback. They were impressed with the school, impressed with our kids. I want to just recognize the folks that have been involved in the all-night grad party. This is their 25th year, and on June 3rd, they're going to have a ceremony here. I think it's at 1 o'clock, just commemorating the 25th year. So there's a lot of people that have given a lot of hours in that, and that's just a great project for our kids and keeps our kids safe on graduation night. I will mention just, you know, the U.S. News and World Report rankings, second year in a row in top 5. So we went many years without breaking the top 10, and we have top 5 the last 2 years. Again, can't get too hung up on that, but it's nice to be in the top 2.8% of high schools in the country. Again, not perfect. We're not saying anything's perfect, but I'm just saying that it's nice to be in the top 2.8% of high schools in the country. And then one thing I want to just throw by you, and we can talk about at the June meeting, we've been planning Digital Learning Day for March 29th. And we're looking at a keynote speaker that's not available that day, but he is available the Monday. So that we did that around Good Friday this year. So if you remember correctly, it's Thursday is a professional development day, then there's Good Friday, and then Monday would be, I think it's April 2nd or something. So one of the things that we're looking at doing, and I'll bring it forward to you to think about, and then if we can do it, we can. If we can't, then I understand, is taking that Thursday before Good Friday, making that a school day, and moving the professional development day to the Monday, which is the Monday after Easter. So we'd be able to have the keynote that we want. I mean, I think it's early enough to make a change, but you folks think about it, and we can talk about it at the next meeting and see. But it's interesting because I've had parents talk to me at advisory and saying that, we travel on Easter Sunday. It'd be a lot easier if you did it on the day off there versus before Good Friday. But we tried to make it a long weekend either way, but, think about it and see what you think. And it's just an opportunity for us to have someone, a big-name person come in and meet with us and then do workshops with our teachers afterwards, so. Okay, I'll put that on the agenda for next time. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. Does anyone have any? Chris, do you want to?
Yes, for my final remarks, unfortunately.
Until you get elected.
True. So, as you guys know, seniors are very much winding down.
Very much winding down.
But with that said, student council is still doing a lot of events. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, which went over very well. We set up a breakfast for them and for the whole staff of the high school, and then we had individual cards written to every teacher and staff in the building, which was very much appreciated.
It was a really nice touch. Really nice.
We were happy to do that and recognize them. And we're encouraging seniors to write more personal and anecdotal notes this week, their final week of high school. Reach out to a teacher on a more personal, like through a note, somebody who's impacted them and helped them in any way. And this week is senior week, so there's some spirits days, the annual Kiss a Senior Goodbye, where the underclassmen write a note to a senior they're going to miss with a Hershey kiss, and then we're selling the grad signs that you see out in front of all the very happy
For sale
parents.
signs. For sale signs. Right next to each other.
Usually when you're the youngest, yeah, right next to each other. And then last week we also were excited to have our elections for the next year's executive board. We have our own James Colley, who will be sitting here next year as rep to the school committee.
Welcome, James.
Along with the other positions elected. I'm happy with the results. Anybody who ran and could have won would have done a great job. But this group for next year seems strong, and I'm happy to pass the torch along to them. And then I guess final note, 2 weeks ago, we had a few representatives walk in the Walk for Hunger when we raised $300, which was on pretty quick, short notice, which we were happy to donate. That was a walk in Boston. That was just something that we took advantage of that was in the area. But that is all I have.
It's your last meeting?
It is.
It's your last meeting. It just hit me. The next
Yeah, it's
meeting
pretty
is
quick.
after graduation.
Yep. So,
Well, thank you, Chris.
thank you guys. It was awesome. I had no idea what I was getting into, to be honest, and I was pleasantly surprised by
You've got big shoes to fill.
everything.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
So thank you guys. It was fun.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I think Chris has been really, very diligent, even when senioritis has kicked in, he's like shown up. When the Celtics are playing Game 7. That's pretty good. You've done a great job. You've been a real compliment to the committee, so
Well, thank you.
appreciate your work and good luck next year.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
I echo that. I'll sign your nomination papers whenever you're ready. The other thing, Jeff mentioned earlier, expressed our appreciation of the Warrant Committee, and I wanted to echo that. I know that the Warrant Committee is an unelected board in Medfield, and that there are a number of members who are rotating off. And it's something that we as a board, I think, should pay particular attention to, because I think there's been a little bit of shift in terms of people who are interested in the Warrant Committee. And in difficult budget times, as we face this year, and I think we're going to face in the next couple of years, I think it's important that we try to identify folks who are really interested in schools and continuing the work that we do here, and supporting the work that we do here, applying to the moderator to be on the Warrant Committee. So I don't know when, I know some members are sort of rotating off naturally, and I'd heard grumblings that there were rumblings over a couple of others, and some who are supportive of the schools. They're all supportive of the schools, but who are particularly interested in school issues, who may be moving on from their roles there. So I think it's something we should be mindful of.
I actually wanted to just talk about the Zulu Gallery art show for the schools, which was just
All right.
an amazing, wonderful display of really just a sampling of the things that our kids have done over the last year. What I really appreciated was the number of modalities, that it wasn't simply just painting, but truly you could see that the art teachers were really trying to take these kids on a journey through 12 years. And you could really see where they began and where they could come out. And that so many of these things are so incredibly creative, and that you don't simply have to be a good drawer to really have an artistic expression. It was really great. And I will be reporting to you next meeting after I have the 2 to 5 a.m. shift on the all-night grad party. So I will be bringing 2 of those. But I'm really looking forward to it. I've heard great things about that shift, and I'm sure if anybody out there in Medfield wants to volunteer for the 2 to 5 a.m. shift, they are
There's still
always looking.
It's fun. Great. Now, Chris, I was wondering if you could pretty please mention that, is it the Medfield Wall of Kindness, that wall behind the staircase with all the stickies?
Of course.
Yeah, I thought that was so
We
brilliant.
didn't mention that in the last meeting. I might not have. So, of course. So that was in partnership with the Harmony Club at Medfield High, where we had 4 sections of each class, freshman through senior, and a personal note, compliment, anecdote was written by the student council and Harmony and other people who wanted to get involved. Just a short little note, literally on a sticky note, and was pasted on the big wall in the lobby. And then people could they'd find their name, they could take it, and whatever. And if that brightened one person's day, that was our goal. And we thought it was a no-brainer when it was proposed to us to do it. It was awesome, and it was well received as well, which we were
I thought it was
happy.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Every single kid, there was
Yeah.
something nice written about every kid. So that was bravo, kudos. And I just want to congratulate the DI team going to globals,
Yeah.
which is huge. It's been a while. So that 6th grade Blake team, they're fundraising because they've got to raise $12,000 or
Next
something.
weekend,
It's a
right?
lot of money, yeah.
Is it next weekend? Or
I believe so.
I think it's next weekend.
Yeah, it's such a short time between the time they win
Mhm.
and able to raise
Raise
that
12
money to
grand,
get
Right.
there.
but it's very impressive. So bravo to them.
And the only thing, thank you, Chris, for your service to the committee. It's been fun. You've always been informative and so professional for such a young person dealing with senioritis, and like Tim says, still showing up is always impressive. And I just want to say, I don't know how I got involved in the all-night graduation party. I don't remember volunteering for it, but the work that they do, like, it's a machine. It is so impressive to go on Wednesdays, and if you haven't done it, everyone always says, oh, do it before your child gets older, and having done it my first year, it is amazing. It's like a hubbub of creativity, and you don't have to be creative, but it's so amazing to see this collaboration of people, men, women, everyone involved in this. Very, very cool to see it in its baby steps, and I'm dying to see it all come together. So very cool thing that Medfield does, but among many other things. But so, and the women that chair it, I know are machines. I don't know how they do it, but they are machines. So I hope that all goes well, and that's it. So our next meeting is Monday, June 5th. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.